And welcome to another episode of Talk with Antonio, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Antonio. I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but wow. Today's episode will be about finally the WWE gave the green light for John Cena to become a bad guy, or as we wrestling fans would like to call it, a heel turn. Plus, I will be talking about the newest members for the WWE's Hall of Fame 2025. I will give my opinion. It's going to be a little bit controversial, but hey, it's what I feel. It's my podcast, and I'm just going to say whatever the hell I want. So, first and foremost, let's talk about finally, hell froze over. John Cena became a bad guy or a heel for the first time since the beginning of his 23-year WWE career. So what did that happen? He double-crossed Cody Rhodes after winning the men's Elimination Chamber match to earn an undisputed WWE Championship match against the American Nightmare at WrestleMania 41. Again, in typical John Cena fashion, he is hogging the spotlight for main eventing WrestleMania again, and not giving other people who richly deserve it. And I'm sorry, but I am being negative towards this guy because I've never been a fan of this guy ever. Even when he was the whole Super Cena or the White Rapper gimmick, whatever. But we'll get into details in this episode later on. But let's go back to the year 2000. It says here that in 1998, this dude idolized Hulk Hogan, and we all know why he idolized that guy. He moved to California in 1998 to begin training for a career in professional wrestling at UPW, and operated by Rick Bassman. That's the same guy who discovered Sting, and he signed with. He made his unofficial debut for WWE on SmackDown, a dark match against Mikey Henderson, who he lost his performance as the Prototype in the year 2000 on October 10th. And in 2001, he signed a developmental contract with the WWF and was assigned to his developmental territory, OVW, or Ohio Valley Wrestling. The class of 2002 of OVW is probably considered the greatest roster of all time, or the greatest class ever, because it had big-time wrestling superstars there. For example, Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, John Cena, and last but not least, Dave Bautista. That's probably considered, the class of 2002 at OVW is probably considered one of the greatest class of all time. Probably, that's something I heavily agree, with the exception of that guy that I just mentioned. But other than that, he was pretty good. But he made his debut for John Cena to debut on a June 27th episode of SmackDown, where he answered an opening challenge to Kurt Angle. But we all know how Kurt Angle, you could say, had great matches with this guy. And he says that he declared himself, he possessed, quote, ruthless aggression, unquote. And he lost by a pinning combination, but put on a good showing. It says here that he was congratulated by Billy Kidman, Farouk, Rikishi, and The Undertaker becoming a fan favorite. But you know, when he started wrestling in WWE, I noticed that he was just another bodybuilder. He was just another sports entertainer. Was he a wrestler? No. I'm sorry. But when he debuted, he was just wearing like these bland tights or trunks, whatever you want to call them. He was boring. He just did not have the it factor at that time. And I was watching, and he says here that in October, all throughout the year 2002, he was just floundering. And he says that he was actually being close of being fired. And here's a clip here. Out of all the people, I'm not a fan of Bruce Pritchard because I've strongly disliked this guy. And this is courtesy of, I know who posted this clip, but this is, I think it was for WWE. It was talking about the ruthless aggression. And here's Bruce Pritchard talking about John Cena. And you can see how John Cena was just wearing those, like, generic trunks, boots, wrestling boots, whatever. And he said something that kind of made me laugh. He was vanilla. I think he was just boring, in my opinion. But here it is. And I would say in the video, and in this little clip here, I would say John Cena should thank his lucky stars because of Stephanie McMahon. And you'll see why. Here it is.
John had a hard time finding himself. He was a wrestler. He was boring. He was bland. He was vanilla. Yes, he had balls, and yes, he wanted it. Yes, he was willing to do whatever it took. But he needed a personality. He needed something else to take him to the next step.
It's true. I don't know. I just thought he was fucking boring. I'm sorry.
The WWE, they used to make a series of cuts around late November and around mid-May. I was told that I would be getting my release in Christmas cuts.
But you know what, though? At the same time, he reinvented himself. I'll give John Cena credit. He reinvented himself with the rapper gimmick. Because I think personally, if it wasn't for Stephanie McMahon, John Cena would have been on the fucking shit list or pink slip, whatever. It basically would just been fired
because it just wasn't working, and there was no argument there. It wasn't. They gave it to me on a silver platter. John Cena, ruthless aggression, and I failed. I messed it up. It was on my last European tour, and I think I was in mixed tag matches. This is how well it did not go. Like, I was just there to maybe have one last time in the ring, but I was on the way out. We traveled as a community, so we're all on the same bus. So I heard a bunch of guys sitting in the back of the bus, like Rikishi and Rey Mysterio kind of leading the charge, and they were all freestyling, just to pass the time. It was a long bus rides. And I remember just being like, let's go try this. Just dove right in. And it was like it resonated with me.
Everybody's clapping and everybody's popping on every little thing. Well, if he can entertain the group backstage of the most cynical group that you could ever ask for, he can entertain the masses.
And Stephanie just happened to be in the front of the bus. And on the way out, she was like, how did you remember all that? Are you kidding me? I don't. I just kind of think of words on the spot and come up with it. That's how freestyle. You don't remember it. She's like, yeah, but you rhymed everything. I'm like, yeah, that's the deal. And we're walking on to our flight to go to our next destination. She had a can of tuna fish. She was eating healthy. She's like, okay, rhyme about this. And in 2 seconds, I made a small rap about the tuna fish, the jetway, the plane we were about to go on, the destination, and then kind of closed it with a comment about Stephanie. She was like, would you like to do this on television? I said, absolutely.
And you know what they say, the rest is history. And he began to become that rapper, and he was a heel at that time. But slowly, it was just like The Rock. Let's make a comparison right now with The Rock. When The Rock debuted in Survivor Series 1996, he was like just like the typical baby face. He debuted, he was all smiles and everything. People were cheering for that. I saw he was cheered at Madison Square Garden. He was cheered, but little by little he was getting booed, and that's when people were starting to say to him, "Die, Rocky, die." And when he made that promo, he cut that promo when he joined the Nation of Domination. That cemented The Rock as being one of the greatest of all time, and I don't care what people say. And look at him, look at The Rock now. He said, "This is not about the color of my skin. This is about respect." Lo and behold, look what happened. The Rock's, little by little, he pushed out Farouk. He became the new leader of the Nation of Domination. And he became one of the most beloved WWF superstars of all time. At that time, WWF, I'm sorry if I call it, but hey, look at him now. He's a movie star. The Rock is a total package. I'm sorry. But go back to this guy. And he floundered. He made it. He was good. He made the gimmick well. He played into it, but little by little, people started to cheer for the guy. And he became the WWE champion in WrestleMania 21. He was the face of SmackDown at that time. But when he was already being cheered. But when he was drafted to Raw in the year 2005, you could hear a couple of boos. And when Christian came out along with Tomko, They were actually cheering for instead of cheering for John Cena, they were cheering for Christian, and they were booing John Cena. A lot of people were like saying, "Oh, he was just becoming like your typical babyface of WWE." People were booing that guy. All of the years of 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, etc., 2012, etc. I could go on and on and on. The WWE pushed this guy to become the new face of the company. Basically, he was the modern day Hulk Hogan. And let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. What do Hulk Hogan and John Cena have in common? They're both political. And now I'm not talking about in terms of conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. I'm talking about political in terms of they have stroke in the company. Look at Hulk Hogan, for example. Did he play politics in wrestling? Fuck yeah, he did. He played politics in the WWF. I'll give you an example. WrestleMania 9, 1993. He basically held the WWE hostage. He told Vince McMahon he wanted to win the WWF Championship against Yokozuna, and look what happened. He won the title, and that's what made Bret Hart so angry at that guy, which is something I'm not going to blame Bret at all. I completely agree with him, because the main event was Bret was the WWF champion against Yokozuna. Yokozuna defeated him, and Hulk came out and he pinned Yokozuna to win the WWF championship. They were supposed to wrestle. Bret confirmed that in an interview with Michael Landsberg. He said that they were supposed to wrestle he was supposed to wrestle Hogan at SummerSlam for the belt, and he even took pictures with doing the tug of war. But now, in an interview, Bret was saying that Hogan did not want to lose. He didn't want to lose the belt to him, and he just didn't want to lose. And he says they want to make a non-title match. He's like, Bret said, since when, you know? And Bret said, and the people, it's not so much about the belt. The champion is the highest paid guy in the company, and for this guy. And when the boss of the company said, you're going to be the champion, and for this guy said, no, you're not going to do this. So Hulk Hogan fucking played politics all the fucking time. The same thing with John Cena. He played politics. He pushed, I wanted to give other people a chance. I'll give you an example. Look what he did to Alex Riley. I don't know if y'all remember him. Even, what's his name? Roman Reigns mentioned it. What happened to Alex Riley? He took a dislike towards Alex Riley, and look where is he now? He got fired, all thanks to John Cena. He did a lot. He also got him and Cena and Randy Orton got Mr. Kennedy fired also. So you tell me if John Cena is not a politician. All the fucking time. But let's go back at that time, in that time period when Cena became after the tragedy of Chris Benoit, the WWE made John Cena the face of the company, like the Super Cena gimmick. And you know what? At that time, I firmly believe that Vince McMahon and the WWE probably dropped the ball in that aspect. I think, in my opinion, during that time, I think in that period while John Cena was still wrestling full time, they should have turned him heel. And I don't understand why they never did that. In my opinion, I've always wondered, even what's his name, John Cena, when he did that podcast with Colt Cabana, he said on the podcast, when it comes to the WWE, they always said there were no plans going forward for anybody. And I think he said that when Vince called a meeting, Vince was probably like, what's next for Cena? Because that's all he cares about. And that's something that I firmly believe. Because who were fans of John Cena at that time? Just casual fans. Little kids and women who knew nothing about wrestling. Just because they saw him on TV, they were automatically fans of him. Like, for example, when I started watching wrestling, I started getting myself informed of who was the champion at that time. Like, when I started watching in September 1992, Bret was the champion at that time. and I knew that Hulk Hogan was already out at that time. But like I said, I was not just a casual fan. I invested myself reading at that time there was no internet, so I was reading magazines, reading like baseball cards that had wrestlers and all that stuff. I soaked up all the information, the knowledge of being when I started becoming a big pro wrestling fan. But in terms of John Cena, it was just casual fans. And that's even CM Punk said, because that's what the WWE cared about. Was they don't care about the hardcore wrestling fans or the smarks or the smart marks as they call it. They just care about the casual viewer is who they care about. But John Cena was the face of the casual fan. Was I a fan of him? No. But at that time, when he was a Super Cena, I think the WWE should have turned him heel at that time. But why they didn't do that, and even like what's his name at that time, Cena teased it. Even when he was the baby face and Brock Lesnar was the heel, people were cheering Brock Lesnar instead of John Cena. Even when Brock Lesnar came back the day after WrestleMania and he attacked Cena, people were cheering for Brock Lesnar and booing John Cena. But in my opinion, I always thought that they should have turned John Cena heel. Because, in my opinion, I think they should have done this. Okay, when we think about wrestling, it's always Hulk Hogan. Hogan personified the WWF and wrestling and made wrestling what it is today. I'll give Hulk. I'm no fan of Hulk Hogan, but I'll give Hulk Hogan credit. He made wrestling what it is today. He is the reason why there's even a WWE. There was even a WCW. All this stuff you see in this day and age because of wrestling is because of that guy, Hulk Hogan. But okay, let's go back to when Vince McMahon decided to give the green light for Hogan to become the new face of the WWF. When he beat the Iron Sheik, he became the WWF champion. And that's what launched the golden age of wrestling in the 80s. Him, Macho Man, all these stars that made the World Wrestling Federation a household name. Hogan was part of it, so was Macho Man. But because of him, it's what wrestling what it was as it is today. And throughout the 80s and even in the early 90s, Hogan's power was waning. But he came back for one last run to win the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 9. And he lost it to Yoko at King of the Ring in 1993. And he left the WWF he just retired. And then the following year, he signed with WCW. And you know what? This is the one thing I've read in books. I read all over the internet. That WCW wanted to recreate the days of Hulkamania in WCW. Because when I saw the video, it was June of 1994 when WCW signed Hulk Hogan. It was like this huge deal. The late Mean Gene Okerlund was there. The Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. They were signing a contract, and lo and behold, WCW had the biggest wrestling star on their roster. A lot of people say that was actually the beginning of the wrestling wars between WCW and WWF. A lot of people say it was the Monday Night Wars, but to me personally, now that I'm much older, I believe that the start of the wrestling wars between WCW and WWF was when WCW signed Hulk Hogan, and that was the one time they actually could compete with Vince McMahon at that time. But when I've watched all these videos of how Hogan was wrestling in WCW, and you could see there were people booing at that because they did not want to see the same thing happening in WCW. What happened to WWF? People were actually booing the guy. And a lot of people hated Hogan because WCW was a Southern company. And Hulk Hogan was a WWF guy, or what they call New York. That's another thing I've actually disliked. I don't like calling it New York or Atlanta or Florida, etc. None of the above. I call it the way it is. WWF, WWE, WCW, TNA, AEW, whatever. But at that time, but going back to what I was saying, sorry if I got off track, Hogan was a WWF guy, and he was wrestling in WCW, a Southern company. And even Hogan said in NWO Back in Black DVD, the people in the Southern Belt and they hated him because he was from the WWF. He was a New York guy. But as I was saying, people were actually booed. And I actually saw it. You can look it up on YouTube. I'm not lying, people. Hogan was being booed at WCW events, and they were like, what the fuck's going on? But around 1995 rolled around, September of 1995, the beginning of the Monday Night Wars, WCW drew first blood, and it all began there. But Hogan was there, and he debuted on WCW Monday Nitro. The ratings were so-so. But like I said, things were still the same with people. People did not want to see Hulk Hogan like being cheered again. 1996 rolled around, and I read the book, and Controversy Creates Cash, and he said Eric Bischoff pitched to Hulk Hogan, saying, why don't you become a bad guy? And Hogan was like, what the fuck? He didn't want to do it. But at that time, in 1996, both Razor Ramon, real name Scott Hall, Diesel, real name Kevin Nash, both of their contracts were coming up for expiration in the WWF, and both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash decided to give their notice and sign with WCW. They debuted, and that's the one thing I do remember. They debuted in Monday Nitro. They were quote unquote invaders, and WCW Bash at the Beach. The pay-per-view was going on. It was Hall and Nash against Lex Luger, Sting, and Macho Man, but Luger was injured in the match, and both Sting and Macho were fighting Hall and Nash. Lo and behold, coming down the aisle, it was Hulk Hogan. But people were cheering, even though that was like, I saw him, that was like, people were cheering strongly for that guy. And people were saying, oh, look, it's the late Dusty Rhodes saying Hulkamania, and Tony Schiavone was saying Hulk Hogan's here, Hulk Hogan's here. But a lot of people have said to this day, even me, I do believe that Bobby the Brain Heenan fucked it up. He kept saying, yeah, but whose side is he on? He ruined it, in my opinion. He went into the ring, he ripped his shirt in half, and he looked at Hall and Nash, and lo and behold, he dropped the leg on Macho Man Randy Savage, and people were like shocked, and they were saying, oh, look, is he the third man? He's the third man. And he did the leg drop again, and he did the thumbs up in the ring to Hall and Nash, and he high-fived them, and that was like, oh my goodness, that created like a huge moment in professional wrestling. I was like, whoa. I remember I saw that pay-per-view, and people were like started throwing debris at the ring, and Hulk Hogan gave that famous speech, and he said, you can call this the new world order of professional wrestling, brother. Because of that heel turn that Hulk Hogan did, that's what really set the record in terms of the Monday Night Wars were picking up. And because of Hulk Hogan and the NWO storyline, they catapulted WCW as, for 64 weeks, high in the ratings. They were beating the WWF Monday Night Raw for 64 weeks straight. It created a ripple effect. And that's what really set the Monday Night Wars. And because of that heel turn of Hulk Hogan is what created the high ratings in WCW. And I personally believe Vince McMahon should have done the same thing with John Cena. He should have turned heel at that time. But why he didn't do that? Because he did not want to risk losing an audience. Because, if a wrestler, if a kid has a favorite wrestler and he's a good guy and he becomes a bad guy, children are going to go sad. They're not going to buy the merchandise or figures anymore. But you know what? I don't know why kids are like that. Me personally, when I was growing up, even though I do like certain good guy wrestlers, but there were bad guy wrestlers that I did like. Like, for example, I liked Crush when he was a bad guy. I liked the evil Doink the Clown. I liked, let's see, for example, in terms of bad guy. Yeah, I actually, even though they were considered bad guy, but they were cool bad guy. The NWO, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. I mean, those two made the WCW watchable at that time, especially after what happened in Bash at the Beach in 1996 when Hogan joined Hall and Nash. Even though they were like, I'm talking about specifically Hall and Nash, they were the cool bad guys. I actually got their merchandise, their figures at that time. I mean, we all had a choice. But in terms of John Cena, I firmly believe that Vince McMahon fucked it up in not turning him bad guy at all during his entire run of WWE. And now when he left for Hollywood, and that's where I'm going to get into another thing I'm going to get into right now. He came back for his final year. He's going to retire. This is like his last run. Now he becomes a bad guy. And people were all reacting negatively. Why, John? Why? And now because he became a bad guy, he did the press conference. And look at this now. He's trying to be all badass and stuff. Look at it. It says, John Cena had nothing to say. He just did a mic drop. Now he's trying to be a badass now. Look at him. Well, actually, I was like, you can't look. Just listen. Sure, motherfucker. I don't know. I just cannot stand the guy. And, you know, it's funny how a lot of people, and even on YouTube, did a voting. Who they mentioned who was the greatest heel turn? It was it John Cena? Was it Hulk Hogan? CM Punk and another guy. And this is something that really, really caught my attention. I was like, what? I'll bet dollars to donuts, ladies and gentlemen. It was young people who don't know anything about wrestling that voted that John Cena's heel turn was the greatest. I disagree with that. And this is something that I wrote on YouTube. And this is what I said, and I quote, "The people who voted John Cena as the greatest heel turn of all, greatest heel are probably younger fans who are not informed of the past heel turns in the history of professional wrestling. I am not a fan of him, but the greatest heel turn was none other than Hulk Hogan. His heel turn made the Monday Night Wars more intense, and it was for wrestling supremacy," unquote. That's what I wrote. And here's a fellow that goes by the name of Michael Glickman 1300 wrote, and I actually agree with him. This is what he said, and I quote, "I couldn't agree more. I actually initially voted for Cena, but of how sudden it was. But after reading all the comments of how Hogan literally created a ripple effect in forcing both WCW and WWE to push the envelope harder and switching from a same old family-friendly product to a more adult-oriented product in order to be able to stay afloat, I quickly changed my vote to Hogan. I particularly like that the Monday Night Wars, among other things, actually helped female wrestlers be able to be on par with their male counterparts, and that allowed them to show their athleticism in the ring, as opposed to what previously went on during the early years when they were just primarily used as eye candy," unquote. Like I said, the greatest heel turn of all time was Hulk Hogan, not John Cena. I don't understand why, like I said, WWE did it way too fucking late. Way too fucking late. And was he a good wrestler? No. Look what Kurt Angle said in regards to this guy. And this is when Kurt Angle left the WWE in 2006, and he was talking about how in TNA he could have great wrestling matches on other, like with Samoa. He mentioned Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. And when he was in WWE, he started getting limited. This is what he said. This is what Kurt Angle said.
And WWE, I started getting limited near the end. I was looking around saying, geez, where do I go next? Mark Henry, Batista?
This is where he said John Cena.
You know, those guys weren't real good wrestlers. Even John Cena will admit he's not a good wrestler. He's a great entertainer. But as far as wrestling, he gets the job done. But he's not one of 10 best wrestlers in the world, no. Although he's very popular.
I agree with Kurt Angle, but this is what it says on Wikipedia. This is something I do not fucking agree with at all. It says here that he has held the WWE Championship record of 13 times and the World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. He is also a 5-time WWE United States Champion, a 2-time WWE Tag Team Champion, a 2-time World Tag Team Champion, a 2-time Royal Rumble winner, and a 1-time Money in the Bank winner. It says here that, this is something that I will give him credit. He is actually well known for his involvement in charitable causes and has granted the most Make-A-Wish Foundation at over 650. Okay, that's something that I will give him credit because he's as a human being, I don't know, but in terms of making kids' dreams come true, I'll give him credit. And look, it says here that this is something I do not agree with. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. No, that is not fucking true. If you want to talk about the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, it has to be Bret Hart and Kurt Angle. I don't give a fuck. This guy is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. That is fucking bullshit. The guy who wrote this on Wikipedia is probably fucking biased, And that's something like, I don't know. Now that the retirement tour that John Cena is doing, I don't agree. I never agree with that. I thought it was phony. And look, Cena, to me, this is something that I want to get into right now. Where do I start? John Cena, to me, is probably one of the biggest hypocrites of all time. Why do I say that? Okay, let's go back in time. Probably 2011 or 2010. I don't know what year he did this. Look it up on the internet. I don't remember, nor do I fucking care to remember. He went on the radio show. He was talking about WWE. And they brought up The Rock. And basically he just started fucking shitting on him. He started shitting on him and saying that how The Rock, how come he doesn't make an appearance and all that stuff. And he basically abandoned wrestling to go to Hollywood. And he kept saying, look at him, look at me. I'm a WWE lifer. Basically he just shat on The Rock. Because he went to Hollywood to become an actor. And he looked at John Cena, he said, I'm loyal to WWE. I'm going to stay here. And because of that radio show, that created heat between John Cena and The Rock. So the following year, I think it was WrestleMania 27, The Rock was the host. And John Cena fought against The Miz. And everyone knows what happened to that poor dude in the match. He got a concussion because he hit his head hard. I saw that on YouTube. Fuck, man. Look, I'm indifferent about The Miz, but I'll give him credit. He was tough. He fucking took that shit fucking hard. I was like, ugh, just looking at that. And then the following night on Raw, the main event was announced for WrestleMania 28. The main event was going to be The Rock versus John Cena. The face of the Ruthless Aggression versus the face of the Attitude Era. And I'm not going to lie to you. I have the pay-per-view on the... I ordered it through DirecTV at that time. And the only reason I watched that WrestleMania 28 is because I wanted to see the main event against The Rock beat the living fuck out of John Cena. And it did not disappoint me. It was an awesome match, but you could tell that The Rock was gassed, but he was gassed up. He was not like in shape to wrestle, but it was. I love that match, and it was in The Rock's hometown, Miami, Florida, and I loved it. And I saw how The Rock beat John Cena with how many rock bottoms I forgot, and he beat John Cena. You can see John Cena looking all sad and everything. Even the pay-per-view was labeled once in a lifetime. But what happened the following year? The rematch, The Rock against John Cena. Even what's his name, CM Punk said it was horrible. Like he just wanted John Cena wanted to recover his loss against The Rock, which I saw that pay-per-view. I fucking hated it. What the fuck was that? What was the point of once in a lifetime? And then they had the rematch the following WrestleMania at I think it was in MetLife Stadium. And what was the point of that? And just for Cena, just to get his revenge on The Rock, I don't know. I hated it, And then that same year, he lost to Brock Lesnar. He lost the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship. But then, what happened later on? John Cena transitioned to become an actor. Who's the hypocrite there? And then he went on a radio show or some interview. I don't know, nor do I fucking care. But he says that he was wrong for saying that. He apologized. Fine, whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that you, John Cena, trashed The Rock for becoming an actor. And golly, look at you now. You became the one thing you hate. You hated it. So, John Cena, in that aspect, you can go to hell. You trashed The Rock because he became a Hollywood actor. And look at you now, dude. Like I said, well, golly, look at you now. Huh? So he returned to the WWE, and now he's announcing his retirement tour. And Chris Van Vliet interviewed Batista, and they asked Batista about this. And this is what Batista said. But this is courtesy of Chris Van Vliet, CVV clips on YouTube. This is courtesy of him, by the way. This is what Batista said. And I completely agree with him. Give me 1 second.
When you retired, you retired. That was it.
That's it. Yeah, done.
That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
John Cena announced a year and a half in advance he's going to retire. Right. He's going to go on this retirement tour.
That's exactly. I get along with John. I respect John a lot more than people think I do for some reason. I think the internet and I think fans have built this rivalry between us, which it really isn't. But this is how we're different. I would never do this. I wouldn't feel it would feel disingenuous to me to go around, and I couldn't. But where I see his point, where he wants to go around and he wants to personally thank all the fans, but there's just something in me where I couldn't do it. It would feel uncomfortable to me. Accolades feel uncomfortable to me. I could never be the type of babyface who was saying good stuff because I wanted to get the crowd to cheer for me. I couldn't be that guy. And I just, I love and respect what he's doing with his whole tour to say, thank you to the fans. But we're just different that way. I couldn't do it. I went out the way I wanted. I retired the way I wanted. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I announced my retirement on Instagram, and I knew I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to tell anybody I was going to do it because I didn't want anybody to say, no, you got to come in, you got to give a speech, the fans, and I don't know, just something about it just would have felt false to me, and I couldn't do it.
This is something I strongly agree with Batista. To me, I think what John Cena did was disingenuous, in my opinion. I don't know. Me personally, I think anything that John Cena does in the WWE, it's all phony to me. Okay, not phony in terms of what he does for the Make-A-Wish kids. Okay, that's a totally different story. In terms of him being the Super Cena character and all that stuff, and the rapper, I just think it was all fucking phony. And now he is doing his retirement tour. Fine. I respect that. But is he one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? Nope. And what's going to happen at WrestleMania 41? Is he going to become the 17-time WWE champion? Does WWE want to break the record of Ric Flair? I don't know. All I can say is what John Cena is doing right now. He's just like whatever to me, you know. But yeah, but in my opinion, so in conclusion, did WWE made a good decision making him bad guy right now towards the end of his wrestling career? In my opinion, no. I think it's lame. Personally, I think they should have turned John heel when he was still wrestling full time. John Cena's not wrestling full time. He's doing his retirement tour, but in the past, they should have done it when he was wrestling full time. And right now, he joined the group with The Rock, but The Rock right there is, you know how I feel about The Rock. I don't know about the other guy who's in the group, but for John Cena to become a heel towards the end of his wrestling career, no. Biggest mistake. I think it was a stupid mistake by WWE, and they should have done it earlier. So, that's just the way I feel. And now, on to the newest members of the WWE Hall of Fame 2025. Okay, we all know that the main one is Triple H. I'll talk about him some other time. These newest members, I do have something against. Okay. Lex Luger. A lot of people say that he deserves it. Me personally, I never look. The first time I knew about Lex Luger, I knew about him when I saw my very first pay-per-view, the WWF Royal Rumble in 1993, when he debuted the narcissist Lex Luger gimmick when Bobby the Brain Heenan introduced him. That was the very first time I knew about him. But I didn't know anything about his past accolades until later on because of the internet. And then I knew for a fact that he was a football player. He was in WCW. There was always a lot of stories of how Lex treated people, and he was arrogant. A lot of people had like negative things to say about the guy, like the late what's his name, Mike Graham. He called him a dumbass in an interview, that he was overrated. Was Lex Luger overrated? Yes. He to me, he just had the look that he had the look that Vince McMahon probably gets a hard on, because Vince McMahon always likes to push people that look like bodybuilders, that have the six pack and all that stuff, because that's what Vince McMahon loves. And when Lex Luger debuted as the narcissist, I'll bet dollars to donuts Vince McMahon was fucking getting a hard on just by looking at Lex Luger. And he wanted to make him the next big star. I'm sorry. And once the narcissist gimmick was losing steam, around that time, I guess, what's his name, Vince McMahon wanted to make Lex Luger the next Hulk Hogan, because he did the body slam challenge that he was doing. Yokozuna was doing at a USS. I forget the name of the ship. It was such a long time ago. I'm sorry, but Lex Luger answered the challenge and he body slammed Yokozuna, and they were doing the Lex Express gimmick. And I remember there was even a video here that Lex Luger was showing with the belt. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe Vince McMahon was trying to like test the audience of how people really would react at Lex Luger as WWF champion. And this is the one here. This is like the most famous video. Lex Luger introduced as WWF champion at WWF Superstars and to the fans in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. This is the clip right here. Let me see.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all know Jim Cornette, the official American spokesperson for Yokozuna, do you not? And, Mr. Cornette, I notice over your shoulder you have the World Wrestling Federation Championship belt, and I would suggest to you that you better get it shined up real bright, because I would suggest to you at WrestleMania, Lex Luger's gonna take it from Yokozuna.
And I would suggest to you and the rest of these idiots around here in this arena that you keep your opinions to yourself, because I got a few opinions. Namely, Lex Luger's never going to see this belt. He's never going to touch this belt. He doesn't deserve to wear this belt. He's a bum. He's a coward. He's no good. And he ain't got the guts. And he ain't going to beat Yokozuna. And if he was here, I'd tell him to his face. As a matter of fact, I'd probably slap him too.
All right, this is where Vince McMahon introduces Lex Luger as the WWF champion, just like to test the audience how they react to Lex as champion. In all honesty, I could hear crickets. No one was reacting, because it was just all like, what the fuck? Listen to this, people.
Well, that's all well and good to say that, but don't look now. But ladies and gentlemen, Lex Luger!
Pretty strong words, you know. One thing, that belt, it looked really, really good sitting on your shoulder. As a matter of fact, man, let me see that a little closer. That belt feels pretty good, doesn't it? As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, Mr. McMahon, why don't we just show Mr. Cornette here what this belt might look like around my waist.
All right, let's take a look.
This was a test right here.
You can't do that.
Now that looks pretty good, huh?
Okay, but this is a taping right here, WWF Superstars. People were reacting, but right now, this is where it was unaired, because you know how they, the magic of YouTube, everything has become, they're releasing a lot of things. This is just like how we're doing on live TV.
I've got a suggestion. How about if our ring announcer gets accustomed to saying what he just might say after WrestleMania? How about it, Mr. Ring Announcer? How about an introduction? Where's our ring announcer? Come on, Mr. Ring Announcer, how about it? Why don't you get in the ring and announce the way it could very well be after WrestleMania?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the new World Wrestling Federation champion, Lex Luger!
People didn't even react to the guy as WWF champion. Because I remember that even what's his name, Jim Cornette said this was like a fucking clusterfuck. It was Lex Luger against Yoko for the WWF championship in SummerSlam. And then Lex beat Yoko on a disqualification, and then everyone started celebrating, like the flags, all like the balloons and all that. It was just like, to me, I agree with Jim Cornette. That was like a huge clusterfuck. What was the point of that shit? Then the following year, WrestleMania 10, they wanted to make the main event, semi-main event, I believe. I remember it was Lex Luger against Yokozuna. For the special referee was Mr. Perfect, and yeah, Lex Luger lost. And even Bret Hart said in the documentary of him, like, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. People said, even Bret said that Lex wasn't going to make it. And I agree. To me, okay, look, let's go back. I never was a Lex Luger fan because I didn't know his past work. Kind of find out that he was a WCW guy. And Eric Bischoff said that he was overrated. No, Mike Graham said he was overrated. And Eric Bischoff was never really a fan of him on a professional level. He expressed that a lot. And the following year, 1995, he was working without a contract in the WWF. And I guess he kept saying that he kept his word to Vince McMahon that he was going to sign a company. He was renegotiating, but at that time, Sting was and still is a dear close friend of Lex Luger. So he spoke to Eric Bischoff to, why don't you bring back Lex Luger? And Eric was not like keen on bringing this dude back, and so Eric Bischoff said on an interview that he offered Lex, I believe, a fraction of the pay. And he thought he was going to, and Eric thought that Lex was going to reject it. But lo and behold, he accepted it. And he also said that my contract is coming up. And what happened, I think it was like the final time that Lex Luger was to the WWF. I think it was at a house show. He helped Diesel. And, the following week he appeared on the debut episode of Monday Nitro, and even Jim Ross said that the beginning of the Monday Night Wars occurred on the debut of Monday Nitro on the Mall of America, Minneapolis. Their big surprise was that they stole Lex Luger from the WWE, and because of that, even when WWF bought WCW, Lex was not included in the contract. And he was blacklisted from the WWE for many, many years. Even Vince McMahon took pot shots at Lex Luger. Because I remember when they were doing the both WCW and WWF, Vince appeared on WCW and on WWF at that time. And even Vince McMahon was saying, let's ask you, the audience, of thumbs up and thumbs down. And the first one that the wrestler that came out of his mouth was, let's start with Hulk Hogan up. A lot of people were doing a thumbs down. Thumbs up or thumbs down. A lot of people were doing thumbs down. And then he mentioned Lex Luger up. A lot of people were saying thumbs down. Even at the time when I watched, I was like, what the fuck would they want Lex Luger? You know, what the fuck is he going to do in the WWE? But yeah, he was pretty much absent. He went to TNA. He made a couple appearances there, but in terms of his personal life and health, in terms of his health, I know he suffered a spinal stroke. In that aspect, right now he's getting help from DDP, and he's getting DDP yoga. In that aspect of his health, I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope he starts walking again. Because I know for a fact that Diamond Dallas Page has helped out a lot of people because of his work. And I saw a video of Diamond Dallas Page helping Lex Luger getting up out of his wheelchair. In that aspect, I commend Lex on that. Or Lawrence Full. What the fuck am I saying? I'm sorry. I'm not going to be like that guy calling him by their real name. I'm going to call him by his wrestling name, Lex Luger. In that aspect, I applaud Lex Luger. But in terms of him being a wrestler, no. And now this year, He's going to be the newest, the second, or probably like the third member of for this year's Hall of Fame 2025. And yeah, he's the newest member. So, what can I say about that? I will comment afterwards of what do I think. And now being a second member, the newest inductee for the WWE Hall of Fame 2025 is none other than Michelle McCool. Really? Her? I mean, okay. If you want to talk about female wrestlers, Trish Stratus, Lita, even though she is like frowned upon mentioning her name, the fabulous Moolah, Natalia, Natty Neidhart, they're all wrestlers, you know. They've done everything. But what did Michelle McCool do to earn a spot in the WWE Hall of Fame now? In my opinion, nothing. She was a hack of a wrestler, and why do y'all think that she was inducted as the newest member of the WWE Hall of Fame? You want to know why? It's because she is married to The Undertaker. And we all know that The Undertaker has stroke in the company. And for her, I don't know. I'm going to say something afterwards. But what do I have to say about Michelle McCool? Does she deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? No. I'm sorry. No, she doesn't. She doesn't deserve. She does, like I said. The only reason she's in that is because of she's married to The Undertaker. And I have been negative towards The Undertaker in terms of his wrestling. Yeah, he is a legend, but I am not a fan of him because of all the fucking shady shit that he did in the past. He fucked up a lot. He fucked over a lot of wrestlers. Like, for example, DDP. Look what he did. He fucking buried that guy. Especially with what he did. His wife pinned Diamond Dallas Page. That basically sealed the career of Diamond Dallas Page into WWF/WWE. So, no, I'm not happy about that. And now for the third, I think it was a tag team, is the Natural Disasters, the late Earthquake and Typhoon. Fred Ottman and the late John Tenta. Do they deserve it? Yeah. I was a fan of them growing up, especially by Earthquake, what he did when the opponent was in the middle of the ring. He started like surrounding him, was jumping up and down, like creating an earthquake. That was pretty awesome. And do I think they deserve being in the Hall of Fame? Fuck yeah. I'm a big fan of them. And yeah, they deserve it. So in conclusion, about the newest members of the Hall of Fame, Triple H, like I said, yeah, he deserves it. But that will be for another episode, for another time. But what do I think of the newest members in terms of Lex Luger and Michelle McCool? To me, Lex Luger, like I said before, Lex Luger to me was always a WCW guy. He was never a WWF/WWE guy. And this is something that kind of like bothers me. I thought about this the entire day. I can't believe they chose Lex Luger to be inducted first over King Kong Bundy. I mean, King Kong Bundy, we all know how much of a star he was. But as we all know, there's plenty of reasons. We'll get into that right now. Like, it's both King Kong Bundy and Demolition that they are not in the Hall of Fame because of a lawsuit they filed against the WWE because of CTE and all that stuff. And because of that lawsuit is what's preventing from both King Kong Bundy and Demolition to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And because of that, they are not allowed, they're just like passed over. But like I said, Lex Luger was in first over King Kong Bundy, and I don't agree with that. And Demolition has been passed over again. I mean, there's still other members that they're going to be inducted, but from the looks of it, it's probably not going to happen. I don't know if probably will ever happen of Demolition ever going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, because the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal were inducted, but then later on, the late Road Warrior Animal participated in that lawsuit they filed against WWE. But in terms of Michelle McCool, I don't know if people will agree with me on this, but they decided to induct first Michelle McCool over Ms. Elizabeth. I mean, there's other names that I know for a fact that will never be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in terms of female names, like managers or wrestlers. One of them is Nancy Man. Well, we all know why. But in terms of Ms. Elizabeth, I've always wondered, why is it that she's not inducted? There's always been stories, ladies and gentlemen, as to why she's not in. It's because of the way she died. And at that time, lo and behold, she was living with Lex Luger. And Miss Elizabeth, I mean, the way that, I mean, how old was she? Let's look it up. Miss Elizabeth, let me see. Let me check it out. It's been a long time. But I know that she died in 2003. Which was 22 years ago, May 1st, 2003, and she was just, her name was Elizabeth Ann Hulett, and she died at the age of 42. That's so fucking young, you know. And even, what's his name, Bret Hart said that he was very saddened by the loss of Ms. Elizabeth. But she's not in, I don't know what is it, but like I said before, a lot of people say it's because of the way she died and because she was living with Lex Luger. Like I said, I don't know. People could look it up in the internet, because, you know, because of this day and age, anybody can get a lot of things from the internet. But like I said before, she was inducted over, Michelle McCool was inducted first over Ms. Elizabeth. That, to me, is a fucking travesty. And now that I think about it, at first, when she was inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame, I thought she didn't deserve it. But now that I think about it, she was a wrestler, a good wrestler, as Beth Phoenix. Yeah, she deserves it. But in terms of Michelle McCool, no, not happy at all. Because she's married to Taker's wife, so... she is a one Hall of Famer. I do believe that she doesn't deserve to be in it. I'm sorry. And I don't care. That's just my opinion. Yeah, that's just about it. But so that about wraps up for this week's podcast. And if y'all want to get in contact with me, email me at talkwithantonio@gmail.com. Or if you have any questions, you can find me on Blue Sky, on Twitter, on Instagram, Talk with Antonio, TikTok, Talk with Antonio, with the number 7 at the end. You can find me there, and I'll see y'all next week. Have a great evening. Good night.